Welcome to this new series where we're going to be sharing advice on moving home. Moving home is always stressful, it's emotional, it's challenging. There's a lot of variables and moving parts, and you want to be moving home like a pro, which is exactly why we are bringing you this alongside our friends and moving experts from AnyVan. So we're going to crack into it. So this is a big one, Hannah. Mistakes to avoid when moving. And I imagine there are an awful lot because it is quite complicated. But to start with, should people, and if so, how do they list every item that they're going to need to move?
So that's a really great question, and it's one of the most frequent calls that we actually receive at AnyVan. It's so easy to forget about the shoes in the back of the wardrobe that you've not worn for 10 years, the boxes you've shoved into the cupboard under the stairs, and then when you come to it on the day, these are the items that make you go, oh my God, I've completely forgotten about them. Most reputable moving companies will have downloadable lists that you can sort of go through, you can walk around your house and check, but my best advice would be take what you have and give yourself a good 20% leeway. So if you think you've got 60 boxes, give yourself 75 just so you covered all your bases. And if it does come to the day and you find that little hidden away item, you can shove it in a box and not have to worry about it.
But does the reverse happen? If somebody thinks they've got 60, they follow your guidance to put 75 and actually they've only got 55. How does the costings work out?
I would say around 80% of our moves tend to come across this issue, whether it's only by a few or whether sometimes it can be in the hundreds, especially if they've not moved for 30 plus years. It is a very fairly common mistake that's made.
Does anyone ever underestimate the number of boxes?
They do occasionally, and then you find that they've got a load of excess boxes that are just sat there empty and they don't know what to do with them. And while that is a bit of a hindrance on the day, it is always better to have that contingency plan in place. And you can also then utilise the boxes elsewhere, such as using it to pad out the van or pad out any sort of boxes that have valuable items in.
And how does it work in terms of cost and what the customer's going to end up paying for the move if they've either underestimated or overestimated?
So if you've underestimated, you will have paid for that additional surplus up front. So that cost has already been levied and it is a bit annoying, but you don't have to worry about it on the day. If you underestimate it and you find that you do have too many that you've not listed, most companies will just take a small surcharge on the day so we can get them on the van and moved.
Got it. And let's talk about other kind of mistakes and issues and things. What about delays and the timing of the move? Because that can be quite sensitive, particularly when there's chains of properties being bought and sold.
So first and foremost, speak with your solicitor to get a rough idea around the completion times, find out when you really need to vacate your property. Delays can come in both forms. So if it's a delay on the customer's side, it might be that they've not given themselves ample time to pack, so they're having to rush around and pack up their belongings as the movers are there. To avoid that, I would really say give yourself a good couple of weeks, start packing. A good timescale to use is once you've exchanged, that week between exchange and completion, make sure that everything you have is boxed up and ready to go.
Okay. But actually on the move day, because there's access and there's keys and there's parking and there's somebody further down the chain hasn't got all their ducks in a row, that can probably cause nightmares, can't it?
Definitely, and it is something that we have to deal with quite often, especially as you say, when there's a chain involved. Always make sure that you have a contingency plan in place. Now, whether that's another property we can potentially deliver those items to. Some people rent a storage unit for the day, so if that does happen, we can actually get your items to a nice safe location. You're not having to worry about the van being sat around.
Is that an alternative though? Actually, you have to have you guys and the van for another 24 hours and the van parks up full of your stuff. Is that an option?
In some cases it can be. It does depend on the mover's schedule and if they can be flexible with that. AnyVan does also provide a storage option. So if you did find that you weren't able to get into your house, we could certainly look at getting your storage sorted and then we can get your items in there too.
AnyVan is a smarter way to move home, furniture or vehicles, and it could save you up to 40%. With over 100,000 excellent ratings, you can trust AnyVan. So visit anyvan.com to get a quote today. When should somebody book their removals?
So from my own personal experience, whenever I've moved house, I have always booked my removal about a month and a half in advance. This is because it does then allow me or any potential movers time to come across any unexpected items, get all the information that they need, and then relay that information to their moving company so they can create a good plan for the move on the day.
It's quite a big call, that one, isn't it? Because you don't know that you're going to be moving until such time as, I mean, if you're buying and selling rather than renting, until such time as you've exchanged contracts.
Yeah.
And then it could be a really short time to completion, or it could be a really long time to completion. I think they'd say the average is about 28 days, but it could very easily be 3 times longer than that, or half as much of that. And I always advise people, it is actually quite dangerous during the conveyancing process when you're buying or selling to predict and to put a date in the sand. We are moving on the 3rd of September, because the chances are
you probably won't.
You probably won't. And people start going, well, the 3rd of September. But actually, it's only the 3rd of September once you've reached the point of exchange of contracts.
Yeah, definitely. And you can always change your move date if you need to. Try to, I would say, give at least 48 hours to do that. Yeah. I know that with us, we can certainly move your date as far into the future as you need to. We have had some cases where we've needed to bring the date sooner and move it back. Yeah. But once you have got your exchange, that's probably, as you know, it's the best time to start planning and actually finalising dates and making sure that you are ready and set. Yeah.
Reading between the lines, or in fact not even reading between the lines, because you're being very clear about it, the earlier you start planning, the more efficient and the smoother the process should be.
Definitely. And I think the biggest mistake people can make is leaving it all till the last minute. I know for me, when I've moved house, I have always been sort of blown away at how much stuff I've actually accumulated over the years that you really don't think you have, and that you also don't realise you want to take with you. A lot of your sort of sentimental keepsakes are the stuff that you do overlook, because you look at it day in, day out, and you always think, I've got my plates, I've got my cups, I've got my saucers, but then there are the little trinkets and also the bits of furniture that you use day in and day out that you don't always think of.
Hannah, I wanted to ask you about special things, treasures, valuables, whether it's sentimental or actually financial. What's your advice to customers on how to deal with those on the day?
The really important documents, such as your passport, your driver's license, any real form of ID, birth certificates, things like that, I would always say keep those on your person. Have an overnight bag planned that you can put those in and take that bag with you. Yep. For the more sentimental items, these are the things that are really going to make your house feel like a home, and it's also the things that are going to bring a sense of calm to the chaos that's going on around you. Those I would say have in a specific box. Make sure that box is labelled as fragile, handle with care. Have that conversation with your mover when he arrives or when they arrive. Yeah. So you can say, this is the box that I really need you to take care of. And also try and have it put in the van at the very end, so it's the first thing that comes out, and that way you can put it in a safe place and you know exactly where it is.
What about delays on the actual day of moving? Because it's not common, but I have seen it happen where somebody's lost the keys, or somebody further down the chain hasn't emptied their loft. And things happen. There's a lot of moving parts on moving day. Are you able to help if there's a delay of a few hours or half a day, or heaven forbid, 24 hours?
Yeah, so absolutely it is something we can do. It is a very, very uncommon occurrence. I think I've only really come across it maybe once or twice in the 5 years that I've worked at AnyVan. Okay. However, it is unfortunately something that can happen. We do have plans in place where we can help you out, such as an AnyVan storage solution, where we will look for the closest storage location to you, and we can actually put your items into storage, and we can extend that storage up until you need your items back out to get into your new property.
Could, in theory, my items stay on the van overnight and be unloaded the following day? Is that possible?
It is possible. We will definitely make sure that your items are in the van in a very secure location. So it might be that your transport provider takes it to a lockup, so your van is secured and in a locked location overnight. Yeah. And then they will come and deliver them the next morning. Okay. That is more common, I would say, than having to put them into storage. But it is certainly something that we can work around and something we can do.
Hannah, great advice. Thank you very much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.